I want to start with a question I had when I first looked at the FAFSA. Why is something so important so intimidating? It is a government form that determines whether you can afford college, and for years it was longer than a tax return. So let us demystify it completely. 2. What does the FAFSA actually unlock, and why does everyone need to file it?
The free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, is the gateway to every federal student loan, every federal Pell Grant, and federal work-study. It is also required for most institutional aid packages. If you do not file the FAFSA, you are locked out of a significant amount of money that does not require repayment.
The historical pattern is that families assume they will not qualify and skip the FAFSA entirely. That assumption has cost billions of dollars in uncollected grant aid over the decades. The Pell Grant alone can be worth up to $7,595 per year for qualifying students, money that does not have to be paid back.
The strategic framing here matters. Note: the FAFSA is not just a loan application, it is a cost of attendance calculation tool. Even students from higher income families should file, because institutional aid formulas at many private schools use the SAI to determine merit-adjacent need awards. Not filing the FAFSA is a strategic error regardless of income.
So, the first takeaway is file the FAFSA, full stop. Even if you think you will not qualify. Beth is right. The cost of not filing can be substantial, and you cannot get that aid back retroactively once the deadline passes.
One round of names, and then the real work starts.
Lewis here. The long memory catches the short-term mistake.
Beth here, the strategist, reading the board before I make a move.
Eid Rose, team assembled. Topic next. The 2024-25 FAFSA rollout was a disaster. Delays of months, broken data exchange with the IRS, and roughly 1.5 million applicants affected. The 2026-27 form is a significant improvement. It is down to approximately 36 questions, compared to well over 100 in older versions.
2. 36 questions versus 100 plus. That is a massive change. What drove that simplification? And does fewer questions mean less information that schools can use to award aid? The FAFSA Simplification Act of 2020 passed as part of a broader budget bill. The redesign removed questions that were rarely used in aid calculations, eliminated confusion around independent student criteria, and restructured the form around tax data that can be imported automatically rather than manually entered.
The direct data exchange is the centerpiece of the new form. Instead of asking you to look up and manually enter specific lines from your tax return, the FAFSA now pulls that data directly from the IRS with your consent. This eliminates the most common source of errors, incorrect tax data entry, and speeds up processing significantly.
Beth is right on the direct data exchange. The practical implication for families: the form is faster, the data is more accurate, and the chance of getting kicked back for corrections is lower. But you still need to consent to the IRS data pull and verify the imported information is correct.
The Student Aid Index, or SAI, is the number the FAFSA produces. It replaced the old Expected Family Contribution, or EFC, starting with the 2024-25 aid year. The SAI is a calculated number that schools use to determine how much need-based aid you are eligible for. It is not a dollar amount you must pay. So, if my SAI is $3,000, that does not mean my family must pay $3,000 for college.
Correct. The SAI is an eligibility index number used by schools to determine the size and composition of your aid package, how much in grants, work study, and loans you might receive. The school subtracts the SAI from their cost of attendance to estimate your financial need. A lower SAI typically means more need-based aid eligibility.
One key change under the SAI system: the minimum SAI can now be -300. meaning students from the lowest income families can receive the maximum Pell Grant award. Under the old EFC system, the floor was 0. That change specifically helps families with very low incomes.
So the SAI replaced EFC. It can be negative for the lowest income families, and the school uses it to calculate how much aid they offer. Stick with me. Later in this episode, we will cover the 4 mistakes that cost families the most money in this process.
The contributor requirement is where a lot of families get confused. The FAFSA defines contributors as the people whose financial information must be provided. For a dependent student, that is typically both custodial parents if they are married, or the custodial parent and step-parent if remarried. The other parent, often called the non-custodial parent, may also be required in some cases.
What happens if a parent refuses to provide their information or is completely out of the picture? No contact at all.
The FAFSA Simplification Act created a new provision for students in these situations. If a parent is incarcerated, abusive, completely absent, or the student has no contact with them, there is a professional judgment process where the Financial Aid Office can override the standard contributor requirement. It is not automatic. You have to ask.
The non-custodial parent requirement is the most common friction point. Under the new rules, if a divorced or separated student's parents have not filed taxes jointly, both parents may be required to provide financial information. Families where the non-custodial parent is uncooperative need to plan for this in advance, not at the form deadline.
The strategic play for complex family situations: contact the Financial Aid Office before the form opens. They can explain which contributors are required for your specific situation and whether a professional judgment waiver is available. Early communication prevents a missed deadline.
The federal FAFSA deadline is technically the end of the award year, June 30th, 2027 for the 2026 to 27 aid year. That sounds like plenty of time. But state deadlines and school priority deadlines are often months earlier, and they are where the real money lives.
How much earlier are we talking about? Can you actually miss state grant money by waiting too long? Absolutely. Some states, Illinois, North Carolina, and others, have FAFSA priority deadlines as early as November or December of the year before enrollment. Miss the deadline, and state grant programs like Illinois' Monetary Award Program may close out their funds before your application processes. That is grant money, not loans.
School priority deadlines are the other critical window. Many universities award their most generous institutional aid packages to students who file first. Waiting until March or April to file for a school with a February priority deadline means you may be eligible for loans, but miss the grants and scholarships that went to earlier applicants.
The rule is simple. As soon as the FAFSA opens, October 1st, file. Do not wait for final tax returns. Use estimated income if needed and correct it later. Filing early is worth more than filing perfectly.
2. What are the most common mistakes families make on the FAFSA? Not just the fill-it-out errors, but the strategic mistakes, the ones that cost the most money?
The biggest strategic mistake is not filing because you assume you will not qualify. Families earning above $100,000 per year often skip the FAFSA entirely, but many private schools and state institutions use the SAI to determine merit-adjacent awards for students in that income range. The application is the only way to find out.
The second major mistake is missing state deadlines. The federal deadline creates a false sense of security. Families file in April for a state with a December deadline and wonder why their state grant was 0. The state ran out of funds before they filed.
The third mistake is entering wrong tax data, particularly on the version of the form where direct data exchange fails and manual entry is required. Entering the wrong line from a tax return causes the form to be rejected or reprocessed, which costs weeks. Beth and Lewis hit the top 2. I want to add a fourth, not understanding the student asset versus parent asset treatment.
Good point, Erica. Student assets are assessed at 20% in the SAI calculation versus up to 5.64% for parent assets. If a student has savings in their own account, it weighs more heavily on the SAI. That is a planning consideration for families who have time before filing.
One of the most important things to understand about the FAFSA, filing it is not a commitment. You are not borrowing money by submitting the form. You are applying to find out what you are eligible for. After you file, you receive a financial aid offer listing grants, work study, and loans.
And you choose what to accept from that offer. Grants, work study, loans. Each component is a separate decision.
So if the school offers me $10,000 in loans and I only need $3,000, I can accept just $3,000.
Exactly. You can accept grants and work study without touching the loans. You can accept a partial loan amount or decline loans entirely if you have other funding. The FAFSA determines eligibility. You determine what you borrow.
Every dollar of loans not taken is debt not accumulated. The FAFSA gives you options. The decision about how many of those options you use belongs entirely to you. See the whole board? Think before you move.
Remember this one thing from today. The FAFSA is a door opener, not a commitment. File early, file every year, and let the aid offers tell you what you qualified for before you decide what to borrow. Drop a comment below. Did you file the FAFSA your freshman year, or did you skip it?
Okay, it is quiz time. Let's find out what's stuck. Think through each question carefully before you answer.
You made it this far. We must be doing something right. Like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what landed.
What federal financial aid does the FAFSA unlock access to? The correct answer is C. The FAFSA unlocks access to federal student loans, Pell Grants, federal work study, and most institutional aid packages from individual schools.
What did the Student Aid Index SAI replace, and what does it represent? The correct answer is B. The Student Aid Index replaced the expected family contribution starting with the 2024 to 25 aid year. It is an eligibility index number schools use to calculate financial need and award packages, not a dollar amount families must pay.
Does filing the FAFSA obligate a student to borrow money or accept any of the aid offered? The correct answer is D. No. Filing the FAFSA only establishes aid eligibility. After receiving a financial aid offer, the student chooses which components to accept, including whether to accept any loans at all.
File early, October 1st when it opens. Check your state's priority deadline, not just the federal one. Know that contributor requirements can be complex for non-standard family situations. And remember, filing the FAFSA is not a commitment to borrow. It is a door opener. Professor Erica, signing off.
Great series so far.
In the next video, we cover the grace period, entrance counseling, and your first payment, the 6-month window between graduation and repayment that most borrowers waste. See the whole board before you reach it.